So basically what we do is we try to imitate something that's alive and that the fish would naturally feed on and present it to a trout and induce a strike. There are different classes of insects that live in the water, and they vary from mayflies to caddisflies to stoneflies, and another class called chironomids, which are the midge flies. Today what I'm going to do is demonstrate a caddisfly for you. And the reason I start with a caddisfly is that when I'm teaching people to fly fish and to fly tie, caddisflies are easy to tie. I'm going to do a fly for you today that has very few materials and it catches fish, which is what you want to do. Now, being able to tie a fly is fantastic because, number one, if you were to go to the store and buy these kinds of flies, each fly is going to cost you $2 to $3. So if you were to sit here and count how many flies are on the table right now, how much money do you think it would cost to buy the flies that are on the table right in front of you? Close to $1,000. This box alone has 596 flies in it because it's double-sided, okay? Oh. Each of these flies cost me pennies to tie because the hooks I buy by the 100 cost me about $7 for 100 hooks, and the thread costs about $2, and I can tie hundreds of flies with one spool of thread. The body is fur from a rabbit that's been hunted, cost me nothing, and the hair is from a white-tailed deer that I hunted when I go bow hunting for my food each year. So just with these two things and the thread, I'm going to tie a caddisfly. So what I've done now is I've dressed the hook just with a layer of thread. I'm going to take a little wax. Now, when I first started tying, I didn't have wax like that. I used to use beeswax, and I had a friend who was a plumber, and they used to use this wax collar when they put a toilet seat into a house. And that wax that they use for the toilet seat also worked very well for tying flies because it has something called paraffin, okay? So all I did was put the rabbit fur on it. I'm just gonna squeeze the fur onto the thread by rotating it around the thread. Can you all see that?
Yes.
And now I'm gonna just wind it back. I'm gonna go back to the base of the fly and I'm just gonna wind forward. I'm gonna keep the profile of the body thin.
Do you make the majority of your flies?
I make almost all the flies that I use.
Did you make any of these?
All of them. Everything in front of you. Now, I don't need this extra dubbing. I can just take it off, pull it off as easily as I put it on. I can save it for the next fly. So now what I've got is I've got a very thin, almost carrot-shaped body. Can you see it? That is the body of the fly, and it's made from only one material. All I need to do now is give it a wing. And the easiest thing to do is I'm going to take this little patch of deer hair. I'm going to cut it off the hide. Now, you know, deer during the winter time, they don't freeze because their hair protects them. Inside the base of the hair, now watch carefully. See that little fuzz coming out? Yes. That little fuzz or underfur is what gives them the insulation to keep them from freezing and keep them warm in the winter. I pull it out, I hit the butt ends, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hair, I'm going to put it in this little tube, which is called a hair stacker. I'm going to push it in, give it a couple of taps, and when I pull it out, all of the tips even up. I pull the hair out by the tips, I give it a little tap so that if there are any broken loose hairs, I can pull them out. And now what I do is I measure them. I want the length of the wing to go from just behind the eye to the back of the hook bend, okay? I'm gonna switch hands because I've got my measurement. I'm gonna cut this, and I've got a nice flat edge. I'm gonna spin my thread counterclockwise. The thread will jump backwards. I'm gonna go 1, 2 times loose. Now watch, I'm gonna keep this tight. I'm gonna pull on the thread, go through the butt ends, go back over, and the wing is locked in. All I have to do now is tie off using my whip finish. and that fly is complete.
Wow.
And that fly will catch trout. If I want it to lay flat in the water, I can trim the body like that, exposing the body. And then when it lands in the water, it will lay flat in the surface film, which is called the meniscus, and the fish will come up and slam that. And that is exactly what's involved. So now I'm going to take it out of the vise, put it into this little hacker plier so that we can pass it around safely and everybody can take a look at it.
Is there something like a certain something that's imitating?
This is imitating an adult caddisfly. And the reason I want to teach people to tie and to fish caddisflies as their first fly is that caddisflies have no tails. And because they have no tails, they can't fly in a straight line. They flutter around. So if you've ever been on a stream or a pond or a lake and seen what you thought were moths flying around, those are actually emerging caddisflies. And the fish feed on them, and when they land on the water, they slap the water. Sometimes they make a disturbance, and it doesn't bother the fish. So if you're a sloppy caster, you can catch fish with a caddisfly. Questions?
So this isn't a question, but on Fish Free Day here, we were at the pipe and my friend caught an 18-inch brook trout
That's fantastic.
with a fly.
Okay, natural brook trout that live in the stream aren't that big. So the fish he caught was probably a hatchery trout that was put into the pond. Native fish will usually run 7 to 10 inches. The largest brook trout that I've ever seen was when I caught in New York in 2003. And that was a sea-run brook trout. It actually lived in a river, but the river entered into the Great South Bay and that went into the Atlantic Ocean. So this was a fish that lived out in the ocean and came back into the stream to spawn. And that brook trout was 31 inches long.
Wow, and you caught it?
I caught it and I had a mount made of it, and that mount is in my basement here in
I
Pennsylvania.
saw in the room over there, there's a mount, it's like, there's a really big trout. Do you know how long
I
it
haven't
was?
been in the room, so I don't know. I only have 3 fish that are mounted. I'd let all my fish go. I don't eat fish. I just like catching them. I have that fish mounted. I have a largemouth bass mounted that I caught. I caught one in Pennsylvania I didn't mount. That was 13 pounds, 3 ounces. That's 2 pounds bigger than the state record. But the fish that I have mounted is one that I caught in New York, which was 15 pounds, 11 and a half ounces.
Bass?
Largemouth bass. That one is here in Pennsylvania, and the state record in New York is 11 pounds, 4 ounces.
That's crazy.
That's a huge fish.
15 pounds is
And then I caught one a couple of years ago in a pond in Broadheadsville, about a half hour from here. That was about 14 pounds. I let it go, and a week later I caught the same fish again. That's amazing. So, any questions on fly tying?
No.
Yes.
The fish that you caught 2 times, did you catch it on the same exact thing that you caught
No,
it
the
on
first
before?
time I caught it on the fly, the second time I caught it on a top water bait casting outfit on a frog bait.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, silicone frog bait. But I have in the past, in 2002 or 2003, I was fishing in a lake in Sullivan County, New York, a place called Kiamisha, and I was fly fishing and I hooked a northern pike. It broke off my fly. A week later, I caught that same fish and got my fly back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the most unique thing that's ever happened to me fly fishing. So I thank you for your attention. You're a great audience, and now you'll have a chance to go and cast a fly rod.
And I was here a
Thank
couple,
you.
on Fish